A lot of days I have the privilege of telling you about good things that New Yorkers are doing, heroic things that New Yorkers are doing, the way that New Yorkers are standing up to this virus and fighting back. I try to really focus on that because it's an extraordinary story of the goodness of this city, the honor, the decency of the people of this city. And we only wish that that goodness, that decency were reflected in the way our national government sees this struggle here in New York City and understands what our people are going through. We only ask that people in Washington show a little respect for the people in New York City who have borne the brunt of this crisis, who have been living in the epicenter of a national dilemma, a crisis we've never seen before, a pandemic, the worst healthcare crisis in 100 years. There are so many ways I could describe it, but we all know what's going on. And anyone with a heart and soul would show respect and appreciation for the people in New York City, for our first responders, our healthcare heroes, the everyday people in New York City who have fought through this and now deserve some help to get back on our feet so we can move forward. We didn't ask for this disease. It came from far away, but it has knocked us back, no fault of our own, and yet we have fought back. All we want is respect and support and a sense that we're all in this together, but that's not what we're seeing coming from the White House. This morning, I woke up to this. President of the United States, a former New Yorker, who seems to enjoy stabbing his hometown in the back, talking about no bailout for New York. What kind of human being sees the suffering here and decides that people in New York City don't deserve help? What kind of person does that? Well, I'll tell you something. Every day, President Trump resembles more and more Herbert Hoover, the president who ignored the Great Depression, who didn't care to put America back on its feet, who has been now remembered in history as someone who failed at the most basic responsibility, which is to protect the people he serves. President Trump wasn't there for us when we needed the testing to stop this horrible disease, and now he's talking about not helping us in our hour of need. He says in this interview he's not inclined to do bailouts. He gave a $58 billion bailout to the airline industry. A few years ago, he gave a $1.5 trillion bailout to big corporations and the wealthy. So who is he kidding? He's not inclined to do bailouts now. That means he's not inclined to help firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, police officers, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, teachers, sanitation workers, all the people who are depending right now on the federal government stepping up and making New York City and New York State and so many other cities and states whole. So we can get back to business, so we can get back on our feet, so we can lead the recovery. So right there, he says he's not inclined to do bailouts. He's a pure hypocrite, given how much money he's put in the hands of the corporations and the wealthy already. He says then it's not fair to the Republicans because all the states that need help are run by Democrats. So now he is putting partisanship ahead of the needs of the nation. You know, I referenced Herbert Hoover a moment ago. Even Herbert Hoover in his worst moments didn't try and pit Americans against Americans, one part of the country against another. In a crisis, a leader is supposed to bring us together. The president is doing is playing politics while people are suffering. He says it right out loud there. The states that need help, run by Democrats. Who cares who runs the states? The people need help. They're Americans who need help right now. Do you not care about that firefighter, that EMT, that paramedic, that police officer, that healthcare worker because they live in a state run by a Democrat or a city run by a Democrat? Does that make them less American in your view, Mr. President? It's absolutely unacceptable. We've never seen anything like it. the entire history of this republic. And people won't stand for it because we need help. We need help because people have been fighting and suffering, and all we're asking to do is get back on our feet so we can contribute to this national recovery. There's not going to be a national recovery without New York City and New York State and cities and states all around the country that have been hit so hard. Then he says, Florida is doing phenomenal. Texas is doing phenomenal. Midwest is fantastic. Okay, so Texas. Here's a letter signed by 100 mayors in Texas, Republican and Democrat both, talking about how their cities are suffering, how they need help or they will not be able to serve their people. They will not be able to provide basic services. They will not be able to get back on their feet. From the great state of Texas right here. He says the Midwest is fantastic. How about this headline from the Associated Press? Coronavirus cuts deep scars through meatpacking cities in the Midwest. Crisis growing in Iowa and other states. I don't know what country he's living in, but here in the United States of America, people are hurting. And it doesn't matter what state they're in. It doesn't matter if it's red or blue. It doesn't matter who they are. They're hurting and they need the help of their government. And now we have the President of the United States trying to back away from his responsibilities. Look, we cannot allow this to happen, and we won't. We're not going to allow one man to stand in the way of what the people of this city, this state, this nation need. The people rule here. The people will not stand for a government that turns its back on those who have fought heroically through this pandemic and are being looked at with great respect all over the country. You know, I talked to the president about Elmhurst Hospital, and he expressed sympathy, expressed admiration for the healthcare workers. He said, oh, I grew up in that area, Queens. Well, Mr. President, if you respect those healthcare workers, then don't walk away from them. Help them, because those very same people who have fought this heroic battle are now the people who don't know if they're going to have a job in the future because there's no money left. The only place that we can get the help we need to get back on our feet is the federal government. Mr. President, be as kind and decent to those healthcare workers as you were to the airline industry and the wealthy and the corporations. That's what we're asking. One standard for this whole country. Doesn't matter which state, doesn't matter red or blue. It just matters that Americans need help, and they need it now.